Welcome to another edition of the GM Files. Jim Duquette with Bobby Evans. Today, we're joined by the general manager of the Texas Rangers, Chris Young, is with us. Chris, we always appreciate it. Thanks for the time, as always. And let's start because I remember you back in high school, right? It was Highland Park High School, I believe it was, back when you were a two-sport athlete playing basketball and baseball. I remember you were trying to make some decisions on where to go to college. Could you play two sports? I remember my brother was at Boston College at the time. He was trying to recruit you there. I think I've told you the story before, but you end up going to Princeton, which was a really good selection. But was it partly that you wanted that you could play two sports? Was that also a part of the decision?
Yeah, that was a big part. Coming out of high school, I played two sports my entire life, basketball, baseball. I love both. People would say, what do you love more? I'd say whichever season it is. I truly had deep passion for both sports, and kind of went through the recruiting process and realized that, why not try to do both in college? And, I knew that I wasn't gonna be able to play both forever, but I felt like, why be limited? There were other football, baseball players who I'd seen play both sports. And I thought, if they can do it, why not? Basketball, baseball overlaps a little bit, but give it a go and see. And so it became sort of a prerequisite for every college that I was looking into out of high school. And with that, there were a lot of great schools, a lot of great opportunities. BC was certainly near the top of the list. I had a great visit there, and Dan showed me a great time. But nonetheless, I felt like in the end, Princeton was the right balance between basketball, baseball, and most importantly, the academics. And I'm very thankful that at, looking back 20 plus years later, that at 18, I had the wisdom to make that decision.
No, you made the right decision. I mean, although I guess the Sacramento Kings were pursuing you as well. Were they one of many, or you got a pretty good offer, as I understand it?
Well, yeah, Bobby, it was kind of a weird situation. So I played both sports at Princeton, was drafted. I was a sophomore eligible draft pick for baseball. I was drafted and signed. And the Ivy League is the only conference that has a rule that if you sign a professional contract in one sport, you lose your amateur eligibility in all other sports. So immediately I became ineligible in basketball. I was starting center for the team, the leading scorer, and all of a sudden on campus, but could not play. And so it really, at that point, it was a big decision. And but ultimately, the chance to realize my dream, become a Major League Baseball player, was too much to pass up. And so I chose it. And 2 years into my baseball career, I had been traded twice and was at sort of a interesting time where I was on the fringe of like either being a prospect or a suspect, and it was a make or break season. And the Sacramento Kings called and said, "Look, we remember you from your college basketball days. You fit our offense. We think you can still do it. You're obviously still a professional athlete. You'll make the transition. We're willing to offer you a 2-year contract." And I don't know if it was the peace of mind of knowing I had a backup plan, if it was, just a different opportunity, but something clicked with baseball, and I went from AA to AAA to the big leagues, and kind of never looked back. So in the end, it worked out, but it was kind of a tough decision to make, sort of a crucial point in my AA career.
Yeah,
it's really interesting. Did you feel like in some ways that playing the two sports helped you, but maybe also could have delayed your development as a pitcher?
Yeah, there's no doubt that I didn't concentrate on baseball fully. I wasn't a full-time baseball player until I signed professionally. To some extent, it probably hindered development in terms of learning my body. As I'm 6 feet 10 inches tall, so there are a lot of moving parts, and syncing up the rhythm, the timing, the delivery, and really the feel for kind of the off-speed pitches, I think, was the last thing to come for me. But in other ways, I think it really prepared me for the challenges of professional baseball. I was in competitive basketball environments that sort of resembled a major league environment in terms of playing games at big time colleges and under the lights and in pressure situations, having to make free throws with the game on the line, stuff like that. So, it wasn't new to me when I got into the big league environment. I think from a mental standpoint, it really did help me prepare. And then I also am a big believer that it gave me sort of a break from each sport. I could kind of reset my mind, clear my mind, step away, and different athletic movements and patterns are still good for you. And so I do subscribe that it both, hindered development a little bit, but it also helped in other ways.
So Chris, when you think about your height, 6'10", we drafted with the Giants, a tall righty, 6'11", I think, from and Sean Jelly. What advantages and what disadvantages did your height play for you over the course of your career, and maybe more so early than late, maybe more so late than early? What were those disadvantages and advantages?
Well, I'll start with the advantages first, Bobby. I think that, just being 6 feet 10 inches tall, it gave me a different release point that I think hitters were accustomed to. Hitters described it as the balls coming out of the sky. I don't know if that's true or not. I felt like I gave up enough home runs that hitters certainly didn't see any difference between me and somebody else. So, but I think the release point, probably I think bigger pitchers don't move as fast, yet they still generate force and leverage. And I think that can be sort of an optical illusion, I think, to hitters. So, my fastball wasn't, Randy Johnson's 98 miles an hour, at 88 or 89 miles an hour, it played up. And I had, I think, a pretty high spin rate, which created a deception that hitters weren't accustomed to seeing. It really, I think I was probably slightly ahead of, today's generation of pitcher where, I was really good for 5 or 6 innings until kind of the third time through the order where hitters had finally caught up and adjusted to the deception element of pitching. So I think those things really played to my advantage. In terms of the disadvantages, certainly, as I referenced, there were a lot of moving parts, days where my body wasn't in sync, my arms and my leg, my lower half, upper half weren't moving weren't synchronized. It created some challenges. Repeatability was a challenge. And I think also just getting a feel for kind of the off-speed stuff. Like I said, I think that was in part from not having played a ton of baseball or pitching a ton, but also, just trying with big hands, trying to grip a small ball and manipulate it and dial in a release point that would allow me to have a consistent breaking ball. So, there were positives and negatives. I think the positives outweighed the negatives, but it took a lot of work. And, early in my career, I had the benefit through my college coach, Scott Bradley. Scott caught Randy Johnson in Seattle for the Mariners. Right. And that was kind of a part of my decision to go to Princeton was to play for Scott. First of all, a wonderful man, terrific human being, and one of the biggest mentors in my life. But secondly, that experience was very, very unique. And I felt like it would help me in terms of my baseball development. Anyway, a few years later, when I got to the big leagues, Scott set me up with Randy, had a chance to sit down and really talk to him. And Randy, one thing that stuck to me was how important daily work on his mechanics were, and that he had to spend, probably 2 or 3 times as much as normal pitchers refining his mechanics and making sure that his body was in sync. And that really stuck with me. And it was something that I took with me the rest of my career. And, again, it didn't give me any more miles per hour on my fastball, but it certainly helped me in terms of syncing up my delivery.
We will be right back, but first, a quick message from DraftKings. How about a little UFC? I love me some UFC, and we've got a big one this weekend. UFC 262, Nate Diaz to Michael Chandler. There will be no shortage of action this weekend. If you're not a UFC, give it a chance. UFC is wild. Every time I tune in, I can't, I am locked in. And this weekend's a big one, and DraftKings is giving you 100-1 odds. God, just pick the main event fighter that you think will win, and DraftKings will give you 100-1 odds on that fighter. Bet $1. If you're not good with the betting terms, you bet $1, you win 100 if you pick the right guy. If MMA's not for you, DraftKings Sportsbook's got everything. Basketball, baseball, hockey. We do the baseball pretty good here. We had our own props going for a little bit. Might still be there. Go check out DraftKings. They're safe, reliable. Withdraw your funds at your convenience. Download the top-rated DraftKings Sportsbook app now and use promo code GMFiles when you sign up. Turn $1 into $100 when you bet on a main card fighter to win. Place your bet and watch the fists fly this weekend. That's code GMFiles to turn $1 into $100 on select main card fighters. Limited time only at DraftKings Sportsbook. Must be 21 or older. New Jersey, Indiana, or PA only. New customers only. Restrictions apply. See DraftKings.com/sportsbook for details. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER in Indiana, 1-800-9-WITH-IT.
Right.
Interesting. I wanted to ask you one question back on the basketball. Was there a basketball player that you patterned your game after, or that maybe people, NBA teams said you're similar to?
Yeah, I was kind of the Euro big man that could, had a few post moves inside. I wasn't overly athletic, but always in the right position. I could really pass. I had very good vision, and I could step outside and knock down a 3-pointer. So, it's kind of similar to today's big men. A way lesser version of the Denver center, Jokic, who is phenomenal. He's my favorite NBA player to watch right now. I just absolutely love the way he plays. But that style, not overly athletic, like I said, but, in the right place, understood the game, knew how to move, how to fill lanes, stuff like that. And, it's a great sport. I loved it. I just, I think that I made the right decision in the end.
Exactly.
So tell us about your trade to the Padres. Bruce Bochy is the manager. How did you find out? What was that transition like for you? I mean, of course, you mentioned several transactions before you ever got to AA, but now you're traded. You're with the Padres.
Yeah, so Bobby, it was I was drafted by Pittsburgh. Thought I was going to be a Pirate for at least 6 years into through my big league career, and a year later got traded to Montreal. Spent a year in the Expos organization, and then got traded to the Rangers. So in AA, I got traded to the Rangers, and I was thrilled. I'm from Dallas, as you mentioned earlier, and was, coming back home, and felt like this is a great opportunity. I'm going to be a Texas Ranger for life. And so I made my major league debut in 2004 for the Rangers, finished that season in the big leagues, won a spot in the rotation in 2005, had my first full season, my true rookie year in 2005. And pitched pretty well. And going into that off season, was prepared to kind of come back the next year and be even better, and build on that year. And my now boss and good friend traded me to San Diego, and it was a real gut punch. It was something that now I completely understand. I get, and really looking back, is painful as it was also the best thing that happened to me in my career. I went from a really difficult pitcher's park to a great pitcher's park. I went from the American League to the National League. I went to from one of the most extreme climates to one of the best climates, the best climate in my opinion. And I went to an organization filled with veteran players and a team that was a playoff team immediately. And so all things considered, it really allowed me to take the next step in my development. It put me in a very good position to succeed. Was able to, experience baseball in a different way than I ever had. And also I was a newlywed at the time. And so my wife and I got out of Texas. As much as I love my family, it was great for us to go kind of start anew on the West Coast. And, it was the two of us on our own. And I think it was a great thing for our marriage as well. And, all things considered, it was wonderful. I had 5 wonderful years there. Bochy was just an absolute joy to play for. Bobby, I know you know him well, but for me, I only got 1 year playing for him, and it was one of the most magical, memorable years, and still have an unbelievable relationship with him just from that one season.
That's great.
That's a good story. So obviously Rangers, Padres, Mets, Royals, Mariners. So give us a feel, outside of the Rangers. Was the Padres the team that was probably the one that was most memorable for you? Or is because there's a lot of mix there between NL, American League, guys, that different cities, like big cities, smaller ones. What stands out about the groups?
I loved every single place I played. I truly did. I never had a negative experience in any place. Certainly some teams were better than others, but every city, every environment, every fan base, I truly loved it. And so, early on getting out of Texas, I think was good for me in that I had never really failed in front of friends and family. I'd always been kind of the guy and successful in basketball and baseball. And then I'm pitching in the big leagues, and obviously everybody fails to some extent. So, there were moments in my rookie year where, people coming up to me in the grocery store saying, "Are you getting enough vegetables?" and stuff like that. So while I appreciate the concern and care all the fans had, it was a little challenging. Going to San Diego, like I said, going to a playoff environment, winning team those first couple of years was phenomenal. It was so much fun, great climate, pitcher's environment. Absolutely loved it. And then from there, after 5 years, moved on to the Mets for 2. I was dealing with some shoulder injuries at the time, but I really wanted to know, I think every player to some extent wants to know, how are you going to hold up on the big stage? Like, can you handle the pressure of New York City and the fans and the media? And Jim, I loved it. I loved it. I mean, I just every night knew the energy that was going to be in that stadium, and we weren't good, but still the fans bringing energy there. It's unlike any place I played. It was really, really neat and unique. And for me, it was a great experience to test myself and see. So 2 years in New York, and then on to, I signed a non-roster deal with Washington after I had shoulder surgery. Did not make the team. They released me. I signed with Seattle. Went there for 1 season, won Comeback Player of the Year for the Mariners in 2014. I think in some ways, my wife and I think of that as the most magical season. We got to go to the Pacific Northwest. The team overachieved. I had a great year at a time which we thought maybe my career was over. It was fun. We had a young family, off days on Lake Washington and just hanging out. It was really, really a special summer there. And then from there, the next year signed with KC and in 2015. And as I say, timed it perfectly. The year they were ready to win the World Series, I happened to kind of come along for the ride and got to experience that. So, every single place offered something different, offered something unique. I loved every place, and I'm grateful for each experience.
We will be right back to GM Files, but first, how about a message from BlueChew, guys? It's been a tough year. Be honest with yourself. It really has. I felt like I've aged a lot. I've got this baby face, but Dad's getting older in the last 12 months. If you like me, you're feeling it. If you feel it in the bedroom, why haven't you checked out BlueChew? It's a unique online service, delivers the same active ingredients as Viagra and Cialis, but in chewable form and a fraction of the cost. You're going to like the cost. Coming up, BlueChew's tablets help men achieve harder and stronger erections. That's kind of all you're looking for to combat all forms of ED. It's an online prescription service, no visits to the doctor's office, no awkward conversations or anything like that. It's simple. Sign up at BlueChew.com, consult with one of their licensed medical providers, and once you're approved, you'll receive your prescription within days. The best part, it's all done online. If you don't like swallowing pills, perfect. You don't have to. Chew them up, baby. I know. God, I ruined a babysitter. She never babysat me again. I couldn't swallow pills, threw up everywhere. It was a nightmare. You don't have to do that with BlueChew. How about this? How do you like free? Do you like free? Because that's what we've got for you guys. Try BlueChew free when you use our promo code GMFiles at checkout. Just pay $5 shipping. That's BlueChew.com, promo code GMFiles. Receive your first month free. And we thank BlueChew so much for sponsoring us. It's free. Go check it out, BlueChew.com, promo code GMFiles. Give it a chance. Have it. Give it a go. You might like it. You will like it. BlueChew. Let's get back to GM Files.
Well, the commissioner's office is I think a really great place to get a perspective on the game. I mean, obviously being with a club is one thing, but being in the commissioner's office, sort of watching what all 30 teams are doing, trying to understand the strategy from the commissioner's office perspective, supporting the teams, but yet holding them accountable. And it's a real balance act. And you took on a pretty significant job there, and really a tough job with Joe Torre. How was that transition for you coming from the playing field now into the leadership role there in New York?
Yeah, Bobby, it was a really it was an interesting experience. I went to camp with the Padres in 2018 as a non-roster invite, trying to make the team, and got cut at the end of camp. Was 38 going on 39 years old. Not sure if I had anything left. Still thinking I did, but also knowing the stress that it was going to be going through that season as kind of the 24th or 25th guy on a roster. And while teams called and offered jobs, I got a call from the commissioner's office saying, we're not suggesting you need to retire, that you're done, but the writing's on the wall. So if you are, we have a position we'd like to talk to you about. And at that point I came home and I just felt like, I knew that post-playing career, I wanted to continue working. It was very important to me that I wanted to continue working in a meaningful role. And I felt like this was a very, very unique opportunity to go straight from the playing field into the commissioner's office. Obviously, having been on the players' side, I understood kind of the labor relations, the challenges there. Felt like it'd be a great opportunity to kind of bridge the gap between the two sides, to
Sure.
offer lend a player's perspective to some of the things that why players feel that strongly about some of the issues and labor relations, and also understand kind of the other side and see it from that lens. And ultimately, it was a great experience. I learned so much. As you said, Bobby, probably the best part was getting insight into all 30 clubs, establishing relationships from the ownership level to the president, general manager, to the field managers, coaching staffs, and understanding each organization. And as you said, the challenge of the job is that you are in, to some extent, the customer service industry, but you also have the responsibility of maintaining and upholding the rules and integrity of the game. So I took great pride in that, but it's a delicate balance, and there were some tough phone calls at times, but really it forced me outside my comfort zone. It made me learn and grow. And I'm telling you, I could not be more grateful to the commissioner, to Deputy Commissioner Dan Halem, and all the folks at MLB who gave me that opportunity. And it was a very, very tough decision to leave there, but I have great respect for everyone.
You join your childhood team, you join your former boss, the guy who traded you. Now you're working with him again. And I'm curious, from that role from Major League Baseball and watching how teams are built, was there a team or two that stood out to you? Like, okay, that's the ideal championship caliber team that I want to try to build in Texas, or are you just trying to take pieces of some of the good ones that you were aware of?
Yeah, Jim, I think it's a combination of things. I think it's the combination of really every experience I've had as an athlete, going back to even high school and being part of what successful teams have, the common denominators of successful teams. And for me, it starts with kind of culture and people, having a selfless mentality, putting the team first, establishing very high standards, and then holding each other accountable to that. And really those things were reinforced along the way. I mean, like I said, I played on winning teams, I played on bad teams, and there were characteristics that were common in each one, good and bad. And I think that being able to apply those lessons over the course of my athletic career, and then certainly from the commissioner's office, getting a look inside and seeing what successful organizations are doing, how they're structured, what they value, what their systems and processes are, to the extent that I could see a little bit of that. I wasn't getting they weren't bringing me in and showing me everything under the hood, but certainly, getting just through conversations. And I'm telling you, every conversation I had, I took something away. I learned something, and it kind of reinforced a lot of the beliefs and convictions that I have in terms of what a team should be. And you guys have both lived it. You understand it. Bobby certainly recently, in terms of 3 world championships, I think that for me, every championship team I've been on kind of shapes my mentality of what a team should be. And, I'll stick by those guiding principles. And I know it's not easy to assemble, but nonetheless, I still am convicted and kind of in the role or the way it should be constructed.
Well, we're excited to see you back on the club side because, obviously you've got some great experience from the playing career. Now the commissioner's office, now to see you with John Daniels is just a great team approach to a great organization, a great new ballpark. But last year was a very different year. I mean, it was your 3rd year in the commissioner's office, and COVID really, changed some of that for you. I guess 2-part question. One, how did the year unfold for you given COVID? And then 2, do you look at every transaction now of a fine or suspension and think, well, I would have done a little less or a little more, or any thoughts on that? So 2-part question.
Yeah, I'll answer your second question first, in that, yes, I still pay attention to the player discipline component. It's a very tough job. I have newfound respect for it after having been involved over the last few years. And there's no perfect answer to every one of these. Each one is unique in their own right. And you just kind of have to take consider all the facts, go through a process, and then make the decision to the best of your ability based on the facts and the precedent you have. But I do not miss that aspect of the job. So that's a difficult one. In regards to the first part, so last year we went into the season, we were kind of, one of my big roles at MLB was on-field initiatives and strategy. And really, as you guys are aware, baseball is at an interesting time right now where there are a lot of changes or trends in the game that are kind of outside the historic norms. And, I think Major League Baseball has done a great job of focusing on how they can kind of realign the game within the norms that once existed. And I think that, it's really time of game and lack of action that are being impacted the most. And so it was one of my favorite aspects of the job, being involved in that strategic rule change. What is necessary to kind of put more action back into the game, to make the game more entertaining, to make it a little bit faster, to kind of appeal to the next generation of fans. And going into last season, we were prepared to really kind of make some progress there. I think we had agreed to new rule changes that, the 3-batter minimum. There were other talks of roster limits and IL limits that would maybe impact and try to, I don't want to say neutralize pitching, but, make pitching a little bit more, make hitting a little more friendly, I would say, is probably the best way to put it. And, and then all of a sudden we were hit with the pandemic, and it really, the last year is almost a blur in terms of there was no blueprint, and we went into just, basically survival mode. What do we need to do? Nobody knew when, I think it was around March 12th, everything shut down, and nobody knew if it was going to be 2 weeks, 2 months, 2 years. And, at that point, really just trying to strategize and come up with a game plan as to how we could get some semblance of a season and make it work. And then, without having any real expertise in the health and medical field, learn as much about the pandemic as possible, and then apply that knowledge to, create a rule book or an operations manual that would govern the 2021 season. And I cannot stress how hard everybody at MLB worked, and the leadership that they showed in making last year possible. There were so many just long nights and conversations that led to nothing in terms of just, strategizing, how the season could be pulled off. Should it be all in Arizona, all in Florida? Should we have 3 cities? Should it be 5 cities? Can we play in home cities? How do we travel? I mean, just countless hypothetical conversations that never materialized. But nonetheless, in the end, I think the 60-game season that the commissioner and everyone else at MLB pulled off was one of, and the teams especially. I mean, the credit truly goes to the teams, the clubs, the players, the management and front offices that made it happen on the ground level. It was really a remarkable feat in Major League history. I think someday the history books will appreciate that.
That's a good point. And what is it, something like 50 straight days of no positive tests, which is unbelievable when you think about it towards the end of the season. I had one more I was going to ask you. You played under a lot of different managers, a lot of various personalities, styles. Whether it was Buck, Showalter, right? Bochy, you mentioned earlier, Bud Black, Terry Collins, obviously in New York, Lloyd McClendon, Ed Yost. I'm sure I probably left out a couple, but is there one that's maybe stands out? You maybe have one story that, because there's so many, but I mean, I don't know if you can pick one, but just, one that maybe stands out, a good story that maybe you could share.
Well, I'll share a story, a Boch story, since Bobby's on here, and he'll know, he knows Boch well. My first year in San Diego, my only year playing for Boch, 2006, we made the playoffs. And, for me, it's something as a young player, young pitcher, you kind of, once you get there, you expect this is going to happen every year. And so I didn't really understand how special it was to win the division, make the playoffs, and I pitched well that season. And, Boch started me game 3. We were in St. Louis. We lost the first 2 games at home in San Diego. I think Jake Peavy started game 1 and David Wells started game 2 for us. We lost both those, and we go to St. Louis in a best-of-5 series down 0-2. And I'm on the mound, and it was just the most magnificent fall day. It was, I think, a 2 or 3 o'clock start. I mean, beautiful, perfect weather in St. Louis, no humidity, and the sun was out. I mean, not a better baseball environment for me to make my playoff debut in, such a perfect baseball city in front of that fan base. It was really special. And so anyway, in the game, pitching well, kind of cruising for a few innings. And then I think in the fifth inning with 2 outs, ran into a little bit of trouble. And we had a great bullpen that year in San Diego. That was the strength of our team, and ran into a little bit of trouble. And Mike Piazza was catching. It was his 1 year in San Diego. He was catching, and Mike and I had clicked. We had gotten on a roll. He knew what I like to do. It was a very simple game plan, but Mike, called a great game, and we had rolled to that point. So I look up, we got runners, I think first and second, and Albert Pujols coming up. And I look over, and Mike's standing up to come out to the mound. And I look at the dugout, and Bochy is coming out. And all season long, when Bochy came out of the dugout, it meant you're done. And so I kind of, stepped off the back of the mound, and I don't think I hadn't given up a run at this point, but nonetheless knew that, okay, it's, kind of a short outing, but he trusts the bullpen. We've got a great bullpen. He has to do what he has to do. And, but there's, as a competitor, a little sense of disappointment. I wanted to go deeper. And so Mike gets to the mound before Bochy, and then Bochy comes out, and I kind of have my head down, and Bochy, instead of reaching for the ball, looks at Mike and says, how's it coming out? What's he got? Mike said, Bochy, it's still coming out. It's playing. And Bochy said, looks me in the eye. And at this point I'm thinking, like, there's a chance he's going to leave me in the game. And looks me in the eye, and he says, CY, you helped get us here this season. This is your game. You're going to stay out here and win it for us. Go get this guy. And he patted me on the butt and walked off the mound. And the
Bochy.
level of confidence that Bochy instilled in me at that point, there was no way I was giving up a hit at that point. And, I retired Pujols, and I think I had to get Jim Edmonds was after him. I got him out as well, and then pitched another, inning or two after that into the 7th. And, but that was just a beautiful moment in my career where the manager had such a feel for people, and he really came out, and he knew what to say at the perfect time. Had not done that all season long, but instilled this confidence in me that I knew that I was going to succeed in that moment because of that. It always stuck with me, and that's what the magic of Bruce Bochy is, and a very special moment for me. I don't know if he even remembers it. In his mind, he might have been saying, take him out, but he decided to leave me in. But nonetheless, I'm extremely grateful to Bochy for all the memories, but certainly that one.
Well, that sums it up for me in terms of what, what players need today more than anything is that vote of confidence from their coaches and their manager. And it's a lot of sometimes hard to come by because the pressures of those moments and the pressure after the game that's put on the manager for every move they make or don't make. And that's Bruce Bochy for you. And that's why he won 3 and had a chance to win more than that. And, great story and great to be with you, Chris. It's exciting to see you in this role. I hope you're enjoying it. I hope you're able to take it all in. It's certainly a different season, having COVID still lingering, but yet you have a full house. Not everybody does, but we're excited for you, and congratulations on the new role.
No, I appreciate it, guys. I will tell you, I still don't know what I'm doing, but I'm loving every day. And I may not ever know what I'm doing, but nonetheless, it's a great privilege for me to be part of the Texas Rangers organization. This organization has been a ton to me as a fan. Certainly great memories as a player making my debut here. But nothing would make me happier than to see this fan base, this organization win a World Series. And we're going to work hard to get it.
Enjoy it, man. Enjoy it. Are you getting any advice on the groceries or eating vegetables now that you've stopped playing?
Well, I'll tell you what, one thing I'm learning in this seat is that, when the team plays well, how much it impacts people and how happy the last week's been a good one for us. And and our group has played really, really tough and hard. They're every day competing. It's been a lot of fun to watch. And the credit really goes to Chris Woodward and the staff and the players. They've been awesome. It's still early. We have a long way to go, but nonetheless, when you start exceeding expectations, the fans love it. And it's been a lot of fun to just see that, just a little taste of it this early.
Yeah, for sure. It's an exciting team, and it's a beautiful ballpark. Chris, thanks for some time. We really appreciate it. We'll talk to you down the road.
Guys, great seeing you both. Thanks so much for having me.